At St. Jude's Elite Trauma Center, excellence wasn't just expected, it was assumed. The hospital was known across the East Coast as a proving ground for the best surgeons money, pedigree, and prestige could produce. The hallways gleamed, the equipment hummed softly with cutting-edge precision, and the doctors moved with the confidence of people who had never been told no. And then there was Sarah Miller. Behind her back, they called her the janitor, not because she cleaned floors, but because that was where they believed she belonged. Dr. Preston Sterling, the hospital's arrogant golden boy and chief resident, made it a sport. He openly placed a $500 bet that the new middle-aged nurse wouldn't last a week. She was too slow, too cautious, too outdated for a hospital that prided itself on speed and flash. Sarah was 52 years old. Her gray-streaked hair was pulled into a tight, unfashionable bun. Her scrubs were a size too large, hiding a frame worn down by time and something deeper no one bothered to ask about. While younger nurses rushed past in tight designer scrubs, fueled by caffeine and confidence, Sarah moved deliberately, measured, careful, unhurried. That alone irritated everyone. "She checks charts like she's afraid they'll bite her," Sterling sneered one afternoon, barely glancing up from his tablet. "We don't need nostalgia here, we need efficiency." The laughter came easily. A nurse named Brittany giggled as Sterling joked about Sarah's trembling hands, mocking her age, suggesting dementia with a smile sharp enough to draw blood. Others joined in, residents whispering that she came from some rural clinic, that she had probably spent decades putting band-aids on scraped knees instead of handling real trauma. Sarah heard all of it. She didn't respond. She never did. She kept restocking IV bags, double-checking expiration dates, gripping the supply cart tightly when the words cut too close. Her hands did shake slightly, not enough to matter, but enough for people like Sterling to notice and judge. In just 3 weeks, she had been assigned the worst shifts, the messiest cleanups, and the most thankless tasks. They treated her less like a registered nurse and more like a tolerated inconvenience, someone to push aside when real work began. During breaks, Sarah sat alone. She drank stale coffee in silence, rubbing her aching knee when no one was watching. She reminded herself why she was there. She needed stability. She needed the pension. Most of all, she needed peace. What none of them knew, what no one even suspected, was that Sarah wasn't weak. She was hiding. And the quiet life she was desperately clinging to was about to be torn apart the moment the hospital alarm screamed and the doors burst open, dragging the past back with them. The calm of St. Jude's didn't break gently, it shattered. The alarm wasn't the usual sharp chime that signaled another incoming patient. This was different, louder, urgent, a two-tone klaxon that sliced through the hospital like a blade, forcing every head to turn. Code Black, ETA 3 minutes, active duty military casualties. This is not a drill. In an instant, the atmosphere transformed. Laughter vanished, smirks disappeared. The same doctors who had been mocking Sarah seconds earlier snapped into motion, adrenaline washing away their arrogance. Shoes squeaked against polished floors as staff sprinted toward the trauma bays. The hospital's sleek perfection gave way to controlled chaos. "All right, let's move," Dr. Preston Sterling barked, his voice cutting through the noise, as he stepped into command. His posture straightened, arrogance morphing into authority. "Incoming from Andrews Air Force Base, Special Operations Transport. That means high-value targets and extreme trauma." He pointed sharply as he walked. "Brittany, get the blood bank on the line. Cole, prep Bay 1. I want every thoracotomy tray open and ready." Sarah emerged quietly from the break room, coffee still warm in her hand. The old instinct stirred in her chest, the reflex to move toward the danger, not away from it. She strained, ready to step in. Sterling noticed her and scowled. "Sarah," he said flatly, as if her name tasted unpleasant, "we stay out of the way. Go manage the waiting room or fetch paperwork. I don't want you tripping over cords when the real work begins." "I'm trauma certified, doctor," Sarah replied, her voice calm, steady. Sterling didn't even slow down. "I don't care what piece of paper you have. This is a SEAL team extraction gone wrong. High-velocity rounds, possible blast injuries. This isn't a flu clinic. Stay back." He turned away before she could respond. Sarah stood still for a moment, feeling the familiar pull, the urge to argue, to insist, to take control. Instead, she swallowed it. She stepped back against the wall near the scrub sinks, making herself small, invisible. Then the doors exploded open. The noise was overwhelming. Paramedics shouted vitals. Gurneys rattled violently across the floor. The metallic smell of blood filled the air instantly, thick and unmistakable. Male, 30s, multiple gunshot wounds to the chest. Male, 20s, blast amputation, left leg. And then the center of it all, a single gurney surrounded by military police and frantic flight medics. "Make a hole," one of them yelled. "We've got the HVT." Commander Jack Reynolds, unit leader, shot by a sniper, blood pressure crashing. Sterling moved fast, energized now, drawn to importance like a magnet. "Get him to Bay 1. Thoracotomy tray now. 6 units of blood." From the shadows, Sarah watched the commander's chest rise unevenly, saw the blood, the panic, the tiny details no one else seemed to notice. And deep in her chest, something long buried began to awake. From the edge of the trauma bay, Sarah watched the chaos unfold with a kind of terrifying clarity. Years of habit took over before thought had a chance to interfere. Her eyes moved automatically. Chest rise, neck alignment, skin color, monitor rhythm. She wasn't trying to interfere. She was diagnosing. Commander Reynolds was drowning. The blood was dramatic, yes, but blood was loud. It distracted people. Sarah's focus went to what wasn't happening. The right side of the commander's chest barely moved. The oxygen saturation on the monitor refused to climb despite aggressive ventilation. His heart rate spiked into dangerous tachycardia while his blood pressure narrowed, every beat screaming compensation before collapse. Then she saw it. The trachea wasn't centered. It had shifted, just slightly, but unmistakably, to the left. A tension pneumothorax. Her fingers curled against her palm. Every instinct she had screamed the same truth. If they continued like this, he had seconds, not minutes. Dr. Sterling stood over the patient, barking orders, his attention locked on the bleeding neck wound. "Jugular nick. Clamp it. Stop the bleeding before we intubate." Sarah stepped forward without realizing it. "Doctor," she said quietly, barely louder than the monitors. Sterling didn't hear her or didn't want to. He pushed the laryngoscope toward the commander's mouth. "He's fighting the tube. Push the paralytic." The commander thrashed weakly, survival instinct burning through the drugs. He grabbed Dr. Cole's wrist, his grip shockingly strong for a man bleeding out. "Restrain him," Sterling snapped. "He can't breathe." Sarah's jaw tightened. "He can't breathe because his lung has collapsed," she whispered under her breath, eyes locked on the monitor. She tried again. "Dr. Sterling," she said louder, "please look at—" "Clamp it," Sterling shouted over her. Something inside Sarah hardened. "Dr. Sterling," she called, her voice cutting through the room. Silence. Every movement stopped. Even the monitor seemed louder now. Sterling turned slowly, fury blazing in his eyes. "Get her out of here," he snapped. "Security." Sarah stepped fully into the light. Her posture changed. Her voice dropped into something colder, steadier. Command. "He has a tension pneumothorax. His trachea is deviated. You're trying to intubate a man whose lung has collapsed. You're about to kill him." Sterling laughed, short and cruel. "You're a nurse who can barely restock a cart. Get out." Sarah pointed, not at the blood, but at the structure of the neck itself. "Look again." Dr. Cole hesitated, then leaned closer. His face went pale. "Preston, no breath sounds on the right. Neck veins are distended." Sterling froze. For one fatal second, ego wrestled with evidence. He chose ego. "Proceed," he ordered. "Push the drugs." That was the moment Sarah moved. She didn't run. She surged forward with controlled force, grabbing a 14-gauge needle from the tray in one fluid motion. Sterling shouted, lunging toward her. Too late. Sarah placed her hand on the commander's chest, found the landmark by instinct, and drove the needle in with precision born of 1,000 battlefields. The hiss of escaping air filled the room, and death let go. The sound was unmistakable. A sharp, violent hiss cut through the trauma bay as trapped air exploded out of the commander's chest, rushing free like a released scream. For half a second, no one moved, no one breathed. Then the monitors responded. The frantic, uneven beeping slowed. Numbers began to climb. 80, 85, 90.
Commander Reynolds' chest rose fully for the first time since he had arrived. He sucked in a deep, ragged breath, coughing as oxygen finally flooded lungs that had been collapsing under invisible pressure. The violent thrashing stopped, the panic drained from his body like a tide pulling back. The room froze. Dr. Sterling was still sprawled against a tray of instruments, staring in disbelief. The younger residents stood motionless, their eyes locked on the monitors as if the improvement might vanish if they blinked. Nurses exchanged stunned glances, unable to reconcile what they had just witnessed with the woman they had mocked for weeks. Sarah didn't look at any of them. Her hand remained steady against the commander's chest, stabilizing the needle. Her breathing was calm, controlled. This wasn't adrenaline to her, it was muscle memory. Then Commander Reynolds opened his eyes. At first, they fluttered, unfocused, clouded by pain and medication. He stared up at the blinding surgical lights, at